Okay, so we're going to dive into this incredible ancient legend, right? It's about a river, but not just any river. This one is a perfect, impossible trap. And what's wild is that this isn't just some old story. It's actually a map of the human mind that uncovers this really profound secret about chaos, order, and maybe, just maybe, the hidden power of being broken.
So, let me just ask you this. What if a river was designed to be a perfect trap? I mean, a barrier that literally changes its nature just to make sure you can never, ever get to the other side.
All right, so let me introduce you to the Sambation River, and that's pronounced Sambation. Now, according to ancient Jewish legend, this thing is just bizarre. During the 6 days of the week, it's not even water. It's a roaring, deafening torrent of stones and sand. Just pure chaos. You can't even think about crossing it. But then, on the Sabbath, everything just stops. The river goes completely silent and still. The path is finally clear. Awesome, right? Well, except now you can't cross because Jewish law strictly forbids travel on the Sabbath. See? It's a perfect trap. Chaos blocks you one way, and divine law blocks you the other. No way through.
So you gotta ask, what's so important that it needs a trap this perfect to guard it? Well, it's guarding a fantasy, really. The 10 lost tribes of Israel. In the legend, they represent this lost paradise, a kind of pure, uncorrupted, whole version of humanity. The ultimate dream is that if you could just get across that river, you could find that perfect, unbroken part of yourself again.
So, how in the world do we even begin to unpack a story like that? Well, to unlock this ancient puzzle, we're going to need a modern key. And that key comes from a pretty unexpected place, psychoanalysis, specifically the ideas of a thinker named Jacques Lacan. Because it turns out this ancient mystery, it's all about the very structure of our minds.
Okay, first up, we need to get our heads around this concept Lacan called the real. And this is super important. The real is not reality. In fact, it's kind of the opposite. Think of it as the raw, terrifying, meaningless chaos that exists before we have language or rules to make sense of anything. It's the stuff of trauma. It's that overwhelming feeling of nothingness. And that roaring river of stones? I mean, come on, that is a perfect picture of the real just bursting through into our world. And on the flip side, you've got what he called the symbolic. This is everything that gives our world structure. It's language, it's laws, social rules. It's the whole grid we place over reality to give it meaning. But here's the catch, that very structure also separates us from that raw, chaotic real. And the Sabbath law, right? The one that just snaps into place the second the chaos of the river stops? That is the symbolic order in action, laying down its rules, its structure, its thou shalt nots.
So here's the big takeaway, the thing that makes this whole story click. This ancient myth, it isn't really about a river at all. It's a map of you. It's a map of me. We are all caught in this exact trap, stuck between the overwhelming chaos of trauma, that's the real, and the rigid, restrictive laws and language we use to try and keep it at bay, that's the symbolic. Blocked by raw chaos on one side and by strict rules on the other.
But wait a second. Where did all those stones, all those broken rocky fragments even come from? I mean, what's their origin story? For that answer, we have to pivot from modern psychoanalysis back to ancient Jewish mysticism, to the Kabbalah.
So, in Kabbalistic mysticism, there's this incredible creation myth, and it starts with a catastrophe. The story goes that at the very beginning of everything, divine light was supposed to flow into these 10 holy vessels. But the light was just too powerful, too intense, and the vessels, they couldn't handle it. They shattered. This cosmic disaster has a name, Shivarat HaKalim, the shattering of the vessels.
And this is where our broken world comes from. The shattered pieces of those holy vessels are called the kelipot. Now, these aren't just evil fragments. In this mystical view, they are the very building blocks of our messy, fragmented material world. So suddenly the Sambitation's roaring stones, they're not just rocks anymore, are they? They are the mythical debris from that original cosmic shattering.
Okay, so you've got this huge cosmic shattering. And what's amazing is how this mystical idea finds a powerful echo, a replay almost, in one of the most foundational events in Jewish history, the giving of the law at Mount Sinai.
You know, we usually picture the 10 Commandments as this very orderly, majestic moment. But if you actually read the texts, it was terrifying. It was thunder, lightning, smoke, pure chaos. And that first set of tablets, the ones inscribed by the hand of God himself, they weren't some comforting gift. They were a direct, unmediated, face-to-face encounter with the divine.
a total eruption of the real, and it was way, way too much for human beings to handle.
So, faced with this unbearable, terrifying purity, this law that was so real it felt like annihilation, what did the people do? They panicked, and they built the golden calf. It was a total retreat. They created something tangible, something they could see and control, what a psychoanalyst like Lacan would call an imaginary defense. It was a comforting illusion to block out that terrifying raw truth.
And then, the climax of the story. Moses comes down the mountain, sees the golden calf, and he smashes the tablets. Now, it's easy to see this as just a fit of rage, but it's so much more than that. It is profoundly symbolic. It's a replay, on a human scale, of the cosmic shattering of the vessels. It's this powerful statement that we, as flawed humans, we just can't handle a direct, unmediated relationship with the truth, with the real. It has to be broken down for us. Okay, so let's recap. We've got a mythical river filled with cosmic fragments, and we have a historical story about shattered tablets. The world seems fundamentally broken. The puzzle looks impossible, but this is where it gets really good. Because now we get to the solution. How do you build a bridge out of all these broken pieces?
This is where it all lines up. Just look at how these different layers map onto each other. You have the catastrophe, the violent river, the shattering vessels, the smashing of the tablets. In psychoanalysis, that's just called trauma. It's the real. And then look at the fragments, the stones and rubble in the river, the mystical kilipots, the fractured tablets. They're all symbols for the same thing. They're the leftover pieces, the waste product of that traumatic encounter. They are all, at their core, the same broken things.
So the psychological journey here seems to follow a pattern, right? First, you have this overwhelming encounter with the real. That's the first tablets, way too intense. Second, there's the panicked retreat into a false comfort, an illusion. That's the golden calf. But neither of those paths work. You can't live in raw trauma, and you can't live in a fantasy. So you need a third way, a new approach that doesn't ignore the trauma, but actually finds a way to integrate it.
And here it is, the solution. And it is absolutely astonishing. It comes from a discussion in the Talmud. So Moses goes back up the mountain and carves a second whole set of tablets. But the big question is, what did they do with the broken pieces of the first set? You'd think they'd bury them, right? Get rid of the failure. But they didn't. Instead, the Ark of the Covenant, the most sacred object in all of Judaism, was built to hold both, the whole perfect second tablets and the shattered fragments of the first, right next to each other. 2. That number changes everything. Not one perfect, pristine set of laws, but 2 sets, one whole and one broken, held together in the very heart of the holy. And the message there is just, it's so radical. It's saying that holiness isn't about perfection. It's not about erasing your failures or your broken parts. It's about having the courage to carry them, to integrate them. And this, right here, is the secret to crossing the Sambation. This is the messianic idea hidden in the legend. The true crossing isn't about physically getting to some lost paradise on the other side. The crossing is a psychological act. It's something you and I can do right now. It is the work of building an ark inside ourselves, an ark that can hold our own broken pieces right alongside our whole, put-together selves. That act of integration, of holding both, that is the moment of redemption. That is crossing the river.
And that brings us all the way back to the Sabbath. See, it's not just about taking a day off work. The law commands us to stop all creative work, which is really all the building, fixing, and managing we do to control the world. The Sabbath basically forces us to stop building our defenses against reality. For one day a week, the river of chaos stops, and we are invited to just stand in that quiet, dry riverbed and just be present with all the broken stones of our lives without trying to fix them or pave them over.
So, this incredible ancient story leaves us with a really deep question to think about. We spend so much of our lives chasing perfection, trying to be flawless. But what if real wholeness, true wholeness, isn't about being unbroken? What if the most secret parts of who we are not the perfect parts, but the ones we've had the courage to piece back together?